Welcome one, welcome all to TARO, folks. That is, of course, Tuesday afternoon recorded. Today, we're going to be doing a really special issue. Mario, you want to hit it off?
Yeah. So today, for our issue of TARO, we are going to be doing a special issue focused on women's issues and women's empowerment in accordance with the color issue of the Sentinel on that same topic. We have a great interview for you and a great panel, and it should be really exciting.
Yep. So with that, we're just going to jump right into our next sections.
Stick around, folks.
All right. Well, welcome back to TARO. We are now joined by Councilmember Juarez and her team, and we're going to be interviewing her and her team on what it is like to be a woman in a male-dominated field of government. So first, Councilmember, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your background. Why did you decide to get into politics?
Okay. I'm sorry, I was just looking up. I don't think I knew that I was going to run for office, but it wasn't, I went to law school and I knew that, and I worked, well, let me give you a little background, then it'll kind of lead up to what happened. I was born and raised on the Puyallup Reservation. I'm an enrolled member of the Blackfeet Nation, and I'm also Latina. So after college and then law school, I went to go be a public defender. And then after public defender, I went to the Evergreen Legal Project, and I was an attorney for tribes. And then I became a King County Superior Court judge. I lost an election, went down to Olympia and worked for a couple governors, then went to go work on Wall Street, mainly because I was working with tribes, and that's when tribes were building up their economic base with their casinos. Mm-hmm. So we were building casinos, and I realized that a lot of what people were doing, working with tribes, I felt that, I could do that as well. So I went to go work at a big a commercial brokerage house I was in Seattle and New York. And then when I got done, I made the decision to go work in a law firm and become a partner and share the tribal practice group, where we continue to do not just economic development for tribes, but for cities, municipalities, just across the board, rural communities, because I had the law on one hand and I understood how Wall Street and banking worked on the other. And I understood how to build big capital projects, brick and mortar buildings that hire people. And basically what Martin Luther King said and Bayard Rustin, economic sovereignty. How do you get communities to have revenue streams so they have that, so they can employ people, so people can work, live, work where they live, raise their children, have the dream, the American dream of owning a home, sending their kids to college, all those things that people have been left out of. And so with that, in working for governors and working for mainly tribal leadership, elected leadership, back in DC and back here, I always knew I was going to run. I just didn't know when the timing was. And quite frankly, I didn't want to run when both my daughters were in high school. Mm-hmm. And that just wasn't, I just wasn't going to do that to them. And I didn't want to. So when the position came up, we went to a district system for the city of Seattle. That's when I made the decision. Well, a lot of people said, this is the time for you, you should run, because I really wanted to run for Congress. And so I ran. And because I've been in this neighborhood for almost 35 years and raised my kids here, been a renter here, been a homeowner here, the Access Pipeline, that got reversed. And again, because they didn't talk to the tribal people, well, they did talk to them, but it didn't go well, about the pipeline. And now Biden came in and he undid that pipeline, that multi-million-dollar pipeline, is not going to get built. But again, there was nobody there at the table in business and advocating and saying, no, you can't do that. The tribes can do what they can do, but if you don't have those allies or those your own kind of people in those systems, you can't undo that. Right. And now we got it undone.
That's a great example. And if we'd had more Native Americans in Congress, that could have been completely different. Completely.
Oh yeah, I would have been there.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. We will be right back.
We passed with gas. Yeah. Is it gas, right? So, those are just examples. And for me, that's the kind of work I like. I don't like getting way up in the clouds about, I like what AOC does. It makes complete sense, but that's nothing new. If you read HR 106, which is the Green New Deal, a lot of those components are components that we saw in the treaties in the 1850s.
Right.
Protecting the environment, alternative resources, don't cut down all the trees, don't pollute the rivers. You got to sustain the environment for us to live. Some of it's just, just common sense. So that's how I got into it. And so as you know, this is my second term. I have a phenomenal staff. I have a district director, Dean, who is just on the ground, knows everybody. Brindell's been my chief of staff since day one, 2015. And she comes from King County. And we got Murphy and Dean at the same time. They were both interns, and I hired them both. They both graduated from the Evans School. And what I like about them is their age and their generation. They really have educated me a lot. Because, my daughters are 29 and 26, and I'm a little cranky about some stuff. And I like that these guys, really explain stuff to me. Like, no, that's not the conventional thinking, boss. This is what people are saying now. This is how this affects, like, this generation doesn't want cars. They're worried about their student loans. They may not want a house. They want to be able to live in a condo and take light rail. So the values that I was raised with, like, get a car, pay up, go to college, buy a house. Those aren't the same values you guys all want, this generation. And that's, I think, for the environment and for the community and for the world, I think that's more sustainable. It's less consumerism. And I appreciate that. And I'm glad that we're arcing towards that way where people aren't so obsessed with things and material things, because all of that comes from somewhere. Some tree has to be cut down for that. Plastic has to be made for that. So, it's nice to have this sensibility, this age group between like 20 and 30-ish in my office, because I learn a lot from them. So that's a long answer to what you've asked me.
That's a great answer, though. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all the work you've done on the city council.
For sure.
Thank you.
The next question kind of ties into your answer, actually. Yeah, I'm just wondering, so you like getting into like the nitty gritty, the groundwork, you like doing stuff in person, you like getting things done.
Oh yeah.
So for real. I'm just asking, like, how do you do that? Like on a day-to-day basis, like you got to build towards something.
Well, you're looking at three of the people that make it happen. Nagine's not with us. She's our number one policy person for my committees. The first thing is when you become elected, you have to stand for something. And you got to remember, I'm 61, so I have a different sensibility about what you stand for. And for me, it was about good governance and taking big ideas and making them happen on the ground. And in order to do that, it's kind of like what President, probably don't know, you're all too young to remember President Reagan, even though I didn't agree with him at all. There is something that he lived by that I realize that I'm that type of politician as well. You hire people that are smarter than you and you delegate. I'm kind of the big picture, like, okay, Dean, we need to get these low-income housing units, work with Seattle Housing Authority, work with the Low Income Housing Association, work with Frank Chop, figure out how that gets done. Brindell, with her county experience, Brindell, this is what we're doing on the county level. Find out how we get this property. How do we go through and build these housing units? And that's just an example for housing. So I guess what I'm saying is that you have really good people and you have a team. I don't do this by myself. And any politician that starts every sentence with I, you should be suspicious of, because I wasn't raised like that. Indian country, we don't start every sentence with I. It's we. It's we. We do this. I don't do all this work. These are the guys that are responding to emails, going to meetings with SDOT and SDCI, sitting down with the mayor's office, talking to SPD. Dean's on the phone with SPD probably every other week with the chief and our local, that's who makes it happen. Then we meet and they say, this is what's going on, boss. And I say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And I remember I was a staffer before I was unelected. So I know what a good staffer is, a good policy person like Dean and Nagin and Murphy and Brindell. They understand an issue and how it relates to the city of Seattle and then how it relates to District 5. Because we represent the city of Seattle first and foremost, but we honor the needs of our district. That's why we went to a district system. So what you're seeing in all of our successes, whether it's the NHL training center, whether it's our second light rail stop, our new community center, the 300 units we're going to put out at North Seattle College, staff did that. They went to those meetings. And my job is to make sure that the train is on time, that everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. Because as I tell them sometimes when they drop the ball, there's 4 of you, there's 1 of me, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. I'm the one, and I have no problem with that. If I make a mistake, I'll own it. If I've done something, I'll take all responsibility. But on the other hand, I get all the credit. So that's what happens. I remember Governor Lowry telling me this when I was a staffer, that when there's a bullet, I'm supposed to jump in front of it. And when there's a success, get out of the way. That's my motto, and with my staff. So if you're looking at politics, it's a good way to get involved if you want to learn to be a staffer and do the hard work. It's not an episode out of the West Wing. It's really hard work. And I don't think people know that. I think they think that we sit on the dais, we just have all these wonderful proclamations. No, staff does it. Staff does the work. They're the unsung heroes. Is there anything you want to add, Dean or Brindell or Murphy? Because they're staff. You guys are the ones that are down there.
I would like to add something, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
The council member is not telling part of the story because she's being gracious, but she also has a real talent for working with other elected officials, community leaders, business leaders in getting the job done. So a classic example is the new Climate Pledge arena that was the former Key Arena. That would not have happened without Councilmember Ward's leadership, reaching out to appropriate private sector industry, reaching out to the mayor, to other council members, and bringing folks together to come up with what was a very complicated plan that was worth how much money? Millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, 1.8 billion.
Again, it required, there was no way anyone could do it by themselves. It required collective work together, and it required leadership to pull those folks together. And that was done by Councilmember Juarez.
Oh, thank you, Brindell.
Yeah.
I am a hard taskmaster. I do crack the whip, right, Dean? Murphy? They're being very quiet, huh, Brindell? They're both just kind of doing this. I'm a little suspicious.
That's awesome, though. I appreciate that. I also, as somebody who wants to go into politics, I appreciate what you said about the kind of work that gets done. It's definitely something to keep in mind. So I want to thank you for that answer.
Well, go into the politics for the right reason. Go because you want to be a public servant, not because you want some ego where I want to say that, I want to put on a suit and say I'm on Seattle City Council. This is why people hate. I'll tell you why people hate politicians. I don't know. I can understand kind of why they may like them, but one reason why people don't like politicians is because they come off a good politician, a bad politician, or good, bad, whatever. I'm just going to say this. You can't. In order to be, I think, a good public servant or a politician, you have to make the commitment personally and professionally that you want to be a public servant.
Yes.
Right.
You can't fake that. And because watch some people that do get elected, and you've seen some of these nuts that have gotten elected back in DC, really Jewish lasers from space. So what my point is, anyone can get elected if they have the right gig and they have the right speech. People can be fooled, but fool me once, okay. So my point is, when you look at people who are running, don't just look at their successes, look at their failures and look how they handle their failures. I know for a fact that I learned way more from taking risks and making mistakes and failing than I have from winning. And I learned that from Justice Smith. He would say, you lost your race when I was running for re-election as a judge. He said, but what's more important is people watch you more when you lose or when you make a mistake. That's when you see the real integrity of somebody. That's when you see what their humanity is. It isn't even about being a good loser. It's about what kind of winner are you? Are you arrogant? Have you ever made mistakes? Have you ever apologized for the mistakes? People are forgiving if you say, you know what, I screwed up. I took that vote and I thought this, or I didn't even see that unintended consequence. We've had those moments where I've had to either go to business or labor or whomever and say, you know what, I didn't, but I see it now, and you're right, and I'll do better next time. That's a good politician. That's what leadership is right. Admitting your mistakes and moving forward and learning from them. And I'm sure you hear that all the time from your parents. Brindell, did you have something to say? I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I would add in that I think one significant reason women don't run for office, that they choose not to, is because of that persona that the councilwoman described, that image of, I can do it all by myself. It's all about me. And I think a lot of women, that doesn't interest them. But if the truth came out and it was really about a team effort and building partnerships and working together, I think a lot more women would jump in and take the risk that the councilwoman is describing, because it is a significant risk. It is,
Yeah.
you are putting yourself out there, but you're not doing it alone.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that point up, because I don't take my daughters say this, it corrects me, the patriarchy. I don't take the kind of hierarchical maleness of some of, you see, Brindell's right. I was born and raised in Indian country, and my style of leadership reflects that. I am more consensus, collective. When we talk, it's the flat table. I don't want this hierarchy. I don't want them calling me council member. Okay, whatever. The point is, how are we going to fix this? How are we going to clean up 125th and Lake City Way? How are we going to get those encampments gone behind the library? How are we going to finish our second light rail station? Where are we at on the construction of the NHL Center? Those are things that I can only do because I have such a great team and we're all a collective. I don't come out of the gate like it's all me, because it's not. And Brindell's right. There really is a difference in I forget what question you asked about. There is a difference in leadership style between men and women. And I have a problem when I see female politicians mimic men, because I don't think they have to. I think they have their own power and their own style. And we're starting to see that, particularly in Washington, D.C. There's some really up and coming young women of color who are becoming leaders. And I think people are getting all offended and clutching their pearls. But for me, I grew up with young women like that. I used to be like that, but that wasn't rewarded. The yardstick was the white male, where the road is paved for them to be successful.
Right.
And those days are gone.
Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And that segues into our next question, which I think you touched on some, but my next question is, does politics still feel like a male-dominated field to you in Seattle, considering the diversity of the city council?
At first, was this your question, Felix? Gabe?
Well, it was kind of a collective effort that the three of us came up with these questions.
I think in a way I find it interesting that as young as you are, or you guys are, that this is still a question. This is like a question from like 1980, I think, because it isn't male dominated. Because, but I think you caught on something, you're onto something I don't think you realize you stumbled into. It may not be physically male dominated, but the thinking is male dominated. And we just touched on that a minute ago, right? Yes, there's more female people of color there, but there's still this leftover, this vestige, if you will, including on me too, because I'm 61, where we learn skills on how to be a leader or how to lead like for me, out of sight of Indian country. Those are still male traits, if you will. The hierarchy, the wanting the title, the I. To me, those are more male dominated, because women aren't like that to some degree behind the scenes. And I saw this a lot when I was at the law firm and I was chair of the tribal practice group, and I supervised a lot of folks. And I really mentored a lot of people of color, new lawyers. And I found with my Asian Pacific Islanders, and some of them had become associates and eventually partners, there was like this cultural thing that I didn't really understand. And then I got it. People mistook their cultural trait of being deferential or being quiet as that they're not listening, or they're not engaged, or they're not aggressive, or they don't want that big case. And I would have to tell the partners, they're just not aggressive white males that think that they own everything. That's not how they were raised. That's not how I was raised. But I had to learn to walk in that world and behave that way in order to compete. And I'm hoping that this generation is going to disrobe of all those mannerisms and understand that, kind of meet people where they are and understand that. And I say that not just for Asian Pacific Islanders, but I see it with the Native American community. We aren't raised to talk, like I said, I, me. We're not raised to, people mistake our silence that we agree. No, I've watched so many tribal councils just be quiet, and people are like, oh, we really nailed it. And I'm thinking, oh no, those people hate you. That's not what happened in there. Cultural differences. So what I'm seeing is that we're starting to shed those kind of male traits of what leadership is. Leadership is not hollering and being mean and bullying. And that's what we've seen. And that's not who we are. And so I'm glad that we're starting to see those. Well, actually, it's been a while. I mean, look at the criticisms that Vice President Kamala Harris got when she was AG for the state of California. If she were a white male, nobody would be saying anything because that's, but here's this woman, she's brash, she's feisty. No, she's everything that you would want in an AG that a white male portrays every single day and gets rewarded for. But because she doesn't look like that, then she's got to be this. And I dealt with a lot of that in my life. I don't like being called feisty or a spitfire or whatever. It's like, no, I'm a good litigator and you don't talk over me and you don't take up all the space because that's not how it's going to be. Black women get the same thing too, it's tiring sometimes.
And
go ahead, Michelle.
If I can just add on, there really is only one way to change that, and that's to elect more women.
Exactly.
And I would also point out that a lot of change has been made, a lot of progress has been made, but the United States Congress is still only, I wrote it down, 23% women.
Wow.
Our state legislatures are, you take all the legislators in the country, it's 29%.
Wow.
Statewide elective office, including governor, lieutenant governor, attorney generals, 28%. So we haven't broken 30% in these categories nationally. So there's a lot of opportunity here, especially for a younger generation, to take it to the next level. And the good news is folks like the councilwoman are setting the stage for that. So hopefully the baton can get passed and more progress could be made. The good news in our state is our state legislature is 40%. So
yeah,
it's a little bit better, but it's not half. So
no, it's not half.
Yeah. There's one state that has 54% women, and that's Nevada.
Nevada, right. Yeah.
And I was going to say, the council member frequently meets with a group of young Native women who are interested in politics and running for office and leadership. And I think that is an example of what I think the next generation can see is more young women who have had mentors like Councilmember Juarez to lean on and really be their North Star, so to say, as they reach their personal and professional milestones.
Thank you. And the point on that is the thing that I learned from Uncle Billy Frank, and I tell my staff this and everyone knows it, is you lead to leave. My job is not to be here forever. It's ridiculous. 8 years is good. I need to bring up fresh young folk and not think that my only relevance in this world is being on Seattle City Council. It's ridiculous. It's not fair. It's not fair to your generation. You lead to leave. You mentor with the understanding that the world is changing and the people that should be in charge up and coming, that this is going to be, I'm going to be dead and gone when you guys are worried about climate change and shit happening. Okay. I shouldn't have cussed. Things happening, but it'll be you and your grandkids that are going to have to worry about this. And that's who should be shaping what this country and this world looks like. Not me. I can't be there for my own ego, and I won't. I will not do that because I wasn't raised like that. But go ahead, Brenda, you had something to say.
Well, I was just going to tack on that running for office doesn't necessarily mean running for high office. It doesn't mean saying I want to be president, which is great, but it can also mean I want to serve my local community. Mm-hmm. And it's a great way for new people, for women particularly, to get experience is to start at a school board level or state legislative level or a border commission. Volunteering to be on a border commission is a great way to start building the network, getting to know people, building leadership experience so that then, and if we get enough women in the pipeline, then, there will be lots of candidates for higher office.
Yeah.
So, again,
it's just one. And that drives me crazy. People are like, well, you can't, so-and-so, you can't just check the box that we already have a minority. We already have a Black person. Mm-hmm. No, you can have more than one.
Yeah.
You have more than one white male. So I think you can have more. You can only have one LGBTQ person. You can only have one transgender person.
That's old.
You're not letting us in the game. We're part of the democracy too. This is our country as well. Our people have died for this country as well. We believe in the Constitution, and quite frankly, I think people of color is what keeps this damn Constitution together and reminds people of the promises that they made when they took our land, enslaved people, did genocide. That's a whole nother thing. But I don't believe in the whole victimhood thing. I believe in, the self-determination of people as a collective. And so, and I believe in those principles, and I still say that, and I will continue to say that.
Thank you so much for that answer. Really appreciate that. I have to say, in addition to really enjoying doing this podcast today, I also feel like I've really learned a lot from being able to talk to you. So I want to thank you for that opportunity. You've answered some of the questions that we haven't asked yet really nicely. So I'm gonna skip around and just ask you one more, if that's all right.
Sure.
And that is, do you have any message for young people, particularly women, but all young people who are interested in politics?
Don't. I was just telling my staff before we hopped on, I said, oh, for the love of God, go to med school, get your MBA. Don't. I worry because I think people think that it is an episode out of West Wing or Parks and Rec or House of Cards, and it's not. It is really hard work. You really want to be committed to being a public servant. And sometimes, I'm not going to lie, obviously I have an ego as well. It's important to me that I won both times. I'm not, of course, that was important to me. But I spent a life of personally and professionally working for the greater good, not just of Native Americans, but a lot of what they say marginalized communities, but also for business. Because I understand what money does and what business does, and holding them accountable as well. So I guess my advice is, if this is really your calling, ask yourself, why is it your calling? What is it about that? Is it about ego? Is it about political expediency? Is it that you want to be called a particular title? Or is it because we have a crappy school district and I want to get on the school board and I want to help raise the graduation levels of these children? Or I want to run for city council because my district has no sidewalks or housing and needs a new library. Not, I want to be on city council so I can spout off about the new Green Deal and talk about AOC. That's not what we do every day. I don't care what you hear on Monday morning. That's not what we do all day. So the other issue is, I always felt like I wished more young people of color, particularly, went to med school and got their MBAs. There's nothing worse than being in a room when everyone there in an MPA, which Dean and Murphy have, is that I don't see a lot of people of color there in planning, in doing, the policy work, because that perspective is so important. And I find myself being the translator of that world, particularly when we're doing work in those communities or those cities. That's the kind of thing is like, and you don't need to go to law school to be a politician, obviously. But I would like to see, right now, since we're dealing with this pandemic, there's such a shortage of medical care people, doctors, physicians who are scientists. I would love to see more people of color be engineers, for the right reasons, not to go to Amazon to build an app that tells you where to go get your hair done, that really breaks through in science, for healthcare. Those are the kind of things where I see huge vast of there's nobody there to speak up for people who aren't heard or purposely and deliberately kept out of these systems or these disciplines. So, I don't want to say, hey, yeah, because I'll just be honest with you, crazy people get elected. You've seen that now, right? And I've seen it my whole life. Yeah. Since Brindell is too, right, Brindell?
Well, yes. I mean, we're very proud in this country that anyone can get elected, and that has a double edge sometimes. Yeah. But I would also add that you can do political work and have another profession too. Right. So, and actually, I think it's beneficial for public policy making, for politics, to have people who are grounded in a field like medicine, for instance, or engineering, because they can bring that forward and bring it into the political discussion. And it broadens that discussion. It makes it more substantive. And I think what the councilwoman's getting at is how to make sure that it's pragmatic, that we're getting things done for people and not just, floating ideological ideas, but actually getting on the ground things changed. Yeah.
And a good example that I deal with right now is I'm also on the Sound Transit Board for light rail, which represents Snohomish County, King County, and Pierce County. And that's where I wear my tri-county hat. I mean, I represent Seattle, but I'm on this board, right? And what you see on the transportation side is what you saw on the housing side in the 40s and 50s, redlining. People, you saw what they did with housing. They drew red lines and said only rich white people can live here and poor people have to live south of the Ship Canal. Did the same thing with transit spines. That means access. Who gets a road by their house or a freeway? You know, or whose neighborhood are we going to disrupt to build a road? Who are we going to get rid of? And so what I find myself is I don't see enough people of color and women who are from those communities that can say, hey, that's not, no, this is not, you can't gentrify or take away from this neighborhood. And this is why. Now, yes, we rely on community members that come to us and do public comment, or they're involved on some level, and we have some people that are employed to work with those communities who understand them, that come from them. But just the sensibilities of that is really lacking. It's really lacking. And so now we're trying to undo all the stuff that got done in the 50s and 60s, the dismantling of, and we're seeing it in police reform. We're trying to dismantle all these systems that were created to exclude and hurt certain groups.
Right.
Now we're trying to dismantle that. What I'm saying, in the dismantling process, I don't see a lot of folk that look like me.
Exactly.
It isn't enough to wear the t-shirt and protest, guys. You actually have to know what you're doing, get educated, get the facts, and learn how to systematically, pragmatically dismantle those institutions that were created to hurt people of color, or quite frankly, anybody, not just people of color.
Well, and there's a lesson in the creation of those systems. The folks who were hurt were not at the table making the decisions by design. And so the way to undo it and dismantle it is to get the right folks at the table in positions of power making the decisions in order to create a more inclusive system.
Yeah.
And but that in our system, that means people have to voluntarily put themselves out there and run for office.
Yeah. If you're on the table, look around who's on the table too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a good example of that is you saw the Dakota.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to TARO. So we have 3 guests today. And so if you guys could go around and introduce yourselves first, maybe say your name, pronouns, and then also your leadership position at Hale would be great.
Okay, I'll start first. So hi, everyone. My name is Krista Chan. My pronouns are she, her, and my leadership positions is I am ASNH president at Hale, and I'm also one of the leaders at CAPS, which is the Coalition of Asian Pacific Students.
Cool. I'm Rachel. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm senior class president, and I'm also one of the wrestling team captains, and I also play lead trumpet for jazz band.
I'm Ruslam. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the junior class president. I am also a captain for the girls wrestling team.
Awesome. So I guess we will just start with the first question, which is, what does being a leader mean to you?
Okay, I'll start first. So being a leader means to me is basically being the role model that I would have wanted to see when I was a kid, and also leading others to find their way and help others to see their light. I think that's just something that is very important to help others, bring others up, because, yes, you can go faster if you go alone, but if you have a whole village behind you, you'll go way further. And I think that's obviously way more important.
I think to me, a leader is someone who just helps others get to their goals and just helps them fully become and take in who they are.
Yeah, I mean, like what these ladies said, I think it's also someone who just wants to make the world a better place. I think if that's your goal, you're a leader, you're there.
Awesome. So I'm just curious how you all were inspired and like what influenced you to become a leader in the way that you are.
I think I became a leader more my freshman year. I feel like before that, I kind of lived in this like false reality of like kind of like pushing under like, hurt or stuff from what's actually happening in my community. But I really woke up when maybe matured, maybe it was mature, but when my sister kind of helped me bring me up and saw what I needed to work on myself and find my identity in who I am. And then that also helped me to be like, oh, okay, since I now have a better understanding of who I am, I see how much hurt and how much love, our Hale community, I think I started in Hale for sure, how much like love we need more. And yeah, that's basically it.
I think I definitely started freshman year as well, but I did want to do it in middle school, but I was pretty shy, and there weren't as many like people of color at jams, and like definitely not a lot of Black people, but like I just didn't feel like, one, I was just very shy, and two, like there's no way I'm gonna win. But like going into freshman year at Hale, even though I've never don't know the people, don't know anything about Hale, like I just thought that it'd be a good push for myself to get out there and meet people. And like even though I just said like I knew absolutely nothing about Hale, I didn't know the culture, I thought it would be really cool to have, for one, like just an Ethiopian girl as a president, and like it would just be a really cool idea.
Yeah, I mean, let's see, what influenced you to become a leader? I mean, really, I feel like I didn't like decide to be a leader. I wasn't like, I'm gonna be a leader now. Like, I think I was like going along doing stuff, and then I was like, okay, like people like this. Okay, like we can keep rolling, you know. So that's kind of what happened for me. Actually, a huge part of like where I think my leadership kind of started is with music. Because when you're a section leader, that's what you work for. Like you're not like granted that. You don't run for that. You work for that. And if you're good enough, then you get to, play the best parts. And so and that lets you like, yeah, lead your section. And so that really influenced my decision to like run for like ASB and stuff, because I had that experience from playing trumpet and I really enjoy that. So yeah.
Awesome.
Can I add on something really quick? Sorry.
Go for it.
I don't know, Rachel, you just said was like, yeah, because it makes you realize like leadership positions doesn't always mean like actual leadership, like being president, etc. Like you just reminded me like, oh yeah, like I played volleyball in middle school and I had to be like, a captain, and just like even little things like that, especially like even in elementary school, like being like a line leader or whatever, or even just like talking in front of your class, like it's the little stuff. It doesn't even have to actually be a leadership position, because there's so many ways that you can be a leader, and it doesn't like it can look in so many different ways. So I just wanted to add that in.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that answer, especially that last part about being a leader and what it looks like to you all. So as you may or may not know, this edition of the Sentinel, and then as an extension, the podcast is based on women's issues and women's empowerment. And so our next question is, what have you learned about being a woman in a leadership position?
Yeah, I think something that I've learned is that I learned that like society has always aligned, women with dependency. We can see this in like history with how women have to depend on their husband to make money, to bring in, I don't know, food and everything on the table. But I just think like when you think of positions in leadership, like let's say like the presidency, that is seen as like independence. And I think that it's very important, especially for women, to like just to break that barrier. And we just have to prove how much that we can be independent. And that's just something that I learned and learning to really show what it means to be a strong leader. And also like yeah, just I just think it's interesting. Like that's something definitely that I've noticed more is that how people will always like align like woman with dependency. So it's just so much harder to like break out of that and be independent and show that like, hey, like I can pull my own weight. I don't need no man to like pull my weight for myself. I don't need a man to tell me like you should be a leader. Like, nah, I can be a leader myself. So, yeah.
Do you mind re-asking the question again? Sorry.
Yeah, of course. So the general question was, what have you learned about being a woman in a leadership position?
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I think my response would be, I think most women or just girls in general, we tend to get overlooked or overseen. We may like say great ideas, but someone will rephrase it or say it, and then everyone tends to be like, "Oh my God, that's amazing! I've never heard that before," even though you just said it. And it's like, why does that happen? What's the difference between the guy next to me saying it and me saying it like 2 seconds before? Like there's absolutely no difference, and there's like a tendency for people just to be, she's a girl, or like girls in tech. I've experienced that because I love coding and everything. There aren't that many girls, so it's like the ones that are there are the ones that tend to like shut people out, or like I don't know how to explain it, but it's just really hard to be seen. I think is the biggest problem, honestly.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned about like being a woman in leadership and in various activities is like, do not undersell yourself. Like that is something I do all the time. And like I assume like people will know like I'm actually like really good at it, even though I'm not saying it, just because like I want to be humble. But like people will not. If you're a female, like people do not assume that you're like good at things, especially if they're not traditionally male. Like I do like kind of like Arissa was saying, I'm really into math. So like I've taken like all the math classes at North Seattle. Like I love math, and I'm one of like 2 girls in the math class. And if I'm like, oh, like that's okay, I'm sure you did great on your test, people will assume like I like sucked, and they're like, you suck, and I'm like, come on. But so do not undersell yourself, because then people will step on you, and it's very irritating.
Yes, I want to add on. You made me think of another point. Also, like learning to like be unapologetic, because I feel like young girls at a young age are taught to say like, "Oh, I'm sorry," for like something that's not even their fault and to begin with. So when you're in positions of leadership, like you're gonna mess up for sure. And it's also just also making sure that people like that you don't say like, "Oh, sorry, like you bumped into me, sorry." Like it's also just like standing up for yourself and making boundaries for yourself is very important, especially as a woman, because society tells you that again, like you're always in the wrong or something, that you have to apologize for something. So yeah, just being unapologetically you and standing your ground is very important.
Yeah, so there was mention of this idea of kind of society, looking down or stepping on women who are in leadership positions. And so with that, I'm wondering, what are challenges that you've run into in leadership positions? And then also along with that, what successes have you earned that you are most proud of?
That's a good question. I'm gonna start with the successes, start with some positivity. I feel like some successes that I'm really proud of is just adding a little bit more joy to as many spaces as I can, and like love, especially in, quarantine times like this. I just feel like the disconnection is so much more visible now. Like we can't, like when you can feel the difference, when someone's sitting right next to you, your classmate, versus when like you're on a computer. So I just feel like something that's really important and something I've success is just bring in like a little bit of happiness or like laughter is very important. And some challenges, I think, Especially in leadership roles. Yeah, I would say just like, especially if you're coming into a new space, like I feel like my freshman year, it's kind of hard because, you know, no one really, you have to, first impressions and everything, no one really knows who you are. So you have to like build yourself up. And I feel like most times, like as a woman, I have to prove to myself that like my voice matters. And I think that's like a hard time because like usually when you come into new spaces, that's like sometimes that something that's always like in the back of your mind that really shouldn't be. But yeah.
I totally agree with the like first I don't know what the word is, but like being able to meet someone, that one's really hard. I kind of seem outgoing, but I think I come off very shy in the beginning. But I think one of the successes that happened in leadership and stuff, I think being able to work with other females and girls, like that's amazing. And being able to like prove like yeah, we did that and like you didn't do it, but like I don't know, it's like a really like empowering feeling being able to like when me and Rachel work together on the wrestling team, it's like, yeah, we're doing this. And then like we pass by the boys team, it's like, yeah, we're stronger. It's like, I don't know, there's just like this feeling. And then as for challenges, I think like questioning yourself is really big. And like there's like a gut feeling sometimes that happens. I'm pretty sure to everyone, but like it's like, should I say that or should I let the person next to me say it? And like like you're questioning if you're good enough. Like that's a really big challenge, I think.
Yeah, off of what Arissa was saying with success is like to be able to lead a group of people, a group of females, and like act like kick ass and be really good and be like, okay, like we showed you and we extra show you because you have to like, if you're female, you have to like extra show people you can do it. You can't just be like good. You have to be like really good so that people think you're just regular good. Like there's always that extra step. So being able to show that and also have people recognize it, like dudes recognize, like, oh, you guys are actually good. Like that's validating, and it's also validating to have other females be like I see you, like you're doing really cool. So that's great. Challenges faced as a leader. Well, I'm a white woman, so there's a lot of challenges that I don't have to face as a leader because of that. But some challenges, let's see. Yeah, definitely people just not thinking you're really a leader or like you didn't actually have to work to become, in that leadership position. Like last year, me and Corinne Harris were captains of the girls wrestling team. And people didn't like really believe we were like captains. Like the dudes didn't really believe that like we were actually on the same level as like the boys captains. So just that like doubt that you're actually a leader, that's a challenge.
Thank you for all of those answers. So there's a lot of like accomplishments that you guys have made and a lot of challenges that you guys have faced, like you guys just said. But what do you think are some strengths or unique qualities that each of you have as a leader?
I think a unique quality I have as a leader is like my identity, because like, my identity is my identity, but I think it's also important because I do try to be I try my best to see who is represented and who try to be inclusive as much and like ask myself, okay, who's being represented, who's being left out, who needs more support. And I think that also goes with like my identity of not only being a woman, but also being like Asian American, and then all these other like identity points, and you just see how much it crosses into one. And it's also, I just also love like how I love listening, and I think that's a really important thing to do, is like especially in leadership positions, is listening to other people to get their perspectives, so then you can see how like, oh, they do this too, and then oh, look how and then you find out more things that you guys have in common and also appreciate the differences. And then once you understand more people's perspective, you see like, oh, we all have this one thing in common, that we're all human and we're all on this earth trying to get by. And I also really love how I consider myself, I have a big heart, so I always try to see eye to eye with people. And there was always this quote saying like, if you go into a discussion or a conversation thinking that you are 100% correct, you've already lost that conversation. So it's just really like putting like, okay, like let me think, let me, see my privilege that I have here, just taking this, like taking one step forward, but also taking two steps back, and just trying to see eye to eye with people that I might not necessarily agree with in the first place. But that's just qualities that I really appreciate about myself.
Man, this is a hard one. Heck, strengths or unique qualities as leader. I think I'm pretty quirky. I think that's a strength. I think it kind of I think sometimes it like disarms people, like, and I think that's good. I think. I don't know though. That's it. I don't have a really coherent answer. Yep, leaving it at that.
Rachel, I can say that you literally can make anyone laugh and smile whenever you join a call or go into a room. You literally are hilarious and you're literally amazing. I can't. And Krista, let me just start. Like, we're in the same grade, but like you've done so much. And I know I'm not older, but like I can say that I'm literally proud of you. Like you're literally amazing. And like I don't know for myself, yeah, this is a really hard question, but like I think I'm pretty driven. Like once I like start something, I tend to get obsessed and then like have to finish it. But I think I'm pretty good at also including people that aren't like quick to volunteer, because those are usually the people that are like, oh, I'll let someone else do it. So I think that's pretty interesting, I guess.
Yeah, Arism also lifts people up. That is a
Yes.
huge strength.
Woman empowerment right here, girls supporting girls. I'm so here for it. I love it.
Awesome. I really appreciate all of those answers. And as somebody who knows all three of you and has been in leadership class with all three of you, you all have incredible strengths and incredible gifts to bring. So I really appreciate that. And kind of in our leadership roles, I know everyone who's in a leadership role has those people who kind of came before them who they look at as role models or influencers. So who do you consider to be your leadership role models?
Leadership role models. I would say definitely my sister, just because she's the one who really opened up my perspective. My classmates, obviously, leadership class. I just love I love the environment of leadership class. I just think that class is just so unique and everything. That's probably like the only class where I see like people's faces, and just like the love that class brings out definitely like inspires me to keep on doing what I need to do and everything. But yeah, my classmates for sure, and also like coworkers. I just basically like I don't really have like any role models the only role models I can think of is people that I personally know, because I know them and I really have known I just don't know oh, I only know the positive of them, like what they've done, but I also know like the negative. I know what they've gone through. I know the hardships. I know what they pulled themselves out of. So I think that's really more important to me than having a celebrity or something be a role model. It's just a little bit harder for me because on media you only see the positive. So it's you're okay, but what also have you gone through? But yeah, that's my role models.
Yeah, I totally agree with the celebrities and everything. I think getting to or last year, I guess, because she was here last year, Homani. I just want to shout her out. She's literally amazing. She has the spirit, and she usually has this I don't know, this vibe of happiness, and she's really amazing. And I feel like she was, or last year in class, she empowers people around. She always knows how to like get things moving, and like I don't know, she was just really cool. And as a sophomore last year, but first time in that class, she made me feel like I've been in that class and I've known her for a while. Yeah, she was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the first person that came to mind was Onyede, who graduated 2 years ago. Oh my God, she was just one of like the coolest. She would reach out to everybody, make sure everyone is doing well. I'm a thrower in track, yay! And she was the throwing team captain my sophomore year, and she has a way of like both like challenging people, like if someone's like doing something like bad or problematic, like she definitely will call you out, and she's super nice and she's super welcoming, and she's just like everything I would want to be as a leader.
It's so cool and so awesome to hear about your guys's role models. Yeah. So for our next question, just kind of thinking like moving forwards, what are all of your guys's aspirations as leaders?
Definitely always. I just feel like always got to be more love. There's always room for more love and everything. So just spreading that, and also thinking about like, okay, what does love look like and everything. I don't even know. My love language is food. So like, does that mean like giving out food or whatever? And obviously it's hard with COVID, but yeah, just trying to put in more love wherever, there needs to be, and there's never too much love. And that's just something that like, especially like joy, happiness, laughter, there's always room for that. Yeah.
I think getting to know different people's stories, especially those that are looked down upon, like, I mean, not looked down upon, but like in our society, like low income, and like just like going around helping the homeless people in Seattle, because we have so many of those people here, and like I can say no one's helping because they're still homeless and they have like nothing basically. So being able to help them and being able to take in their story, like I think that's like one of the most important things that like people can do, like listening, taking in stories. Like people's stories are literally like their life. Like life is just super important, and like being able to hear it and then being able to spread it again will impact like the next person that you tell. And then like that just keeps going, and then it's like a train and that like never ends. So yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it's weird technical difficulties for a second there. Yeah, I think helping people have an idea of where others are coming from. I think if we, yeah, like Arusam was saying, if we really like understand other people just like a teeny bit more, like a lot of good can be done. I don't super remember the whole question. If you could say that, it would be great.
Yes. It was basically just like moving forward, what do you consider your aspirations and kind of like goals in leadership?
Yes, short term. I mean, heck, seniors, we're gonna graduate in 4.5 months, and I wanna make that good. I know it's not gonna be normal, but I'm working to try and get some semblance of a good graduation and a good end of senior year.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for all of your answers to our questions. Just one last thing. I just want to know if there's anything else you'd like to add. If not, that's totally fine too.
I do. I have something. If you ever feel sad, you put a piece of toast in the toaster oven, not just a toaster oven. Then you put on jam, then you put on cheese. You put it in the microwave, melt it, and eat it. If you feel sad, do that. It will be successful.
Jam and cheese.
always good advice.
Thank you very much, Rachel. That's some wise words right there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was, like Felix said, so wonderful to hear all of your responses to all of our questions. Yeah, I think that's all we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us. We appreciate it.
And folks, with that, we're wrapping up TARO. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next month. Have a good one, folks. Thank you.
We pledge our full faith in you, for your spirit in you, for your spirit true, you've much